integrating ServiceNow with Microsoft tools using Microsoft Graph API. So before heading into the content, let me introduce myself. My name is Anvesh Kumar Mupparaju. I am working as an associate technical architect in Tech Mahindra. I'm based out of India, Hyderabad. Yeah, that's pretty much about myself. And yeah, let's get into the content. So before diving into the content, I would like to set the expectations here. So the expectation of this session is just to demonstrate how ServiceNow can seamlessly integrate with Microsoft tools such as Microsoft Teams or Microsoft Entra ID or Microsoft Calendar, that is events. So even Microsoft Groups, whatever it is, like whatever that comes under the umbrella of Microsoft 365, that we can integrate with ServiceNow using these Graph APIs. And here most of the things are there with integration hub, so they are ready-madely available integration hub spokes, but still there are scenarios where the customer might not be having some licenses, or but still they need to integrate few things with Microsoft 365 products. That is where this comes useful. So we use the traditional outbound REST messages, and yeah, to get the data from Microsoft 365 products, like to send something, to even to send a notification to the teams. So that all we can do using this Microsoft 365. And in this session, I will just walk you through how we can navigate this API, Graph API, and how to connect this with ServiceNow. The basic things, pretty basic things. Yeah. So that being said, let's dive into the next one, the agenda of this session. So we'll start with the introduction, and then how to create an Entra ID application. That is how to register our application in the Entra ID and getting the OAuth 2 credentials. And then how to consume Graph API via REST messages, and then handling the pagination, because there might be tons of data in the M365 that we need to paginate sometimes. And then how to insert the data into our ServiceNow target tables if needed. For example, if you are syncing user data with ServiceNow, so or if you are syncing some calendar data with ServiceNow, so within ServiceNow tables, then you might need this kind of this step, and then we'll dive into the question answer sessions. That's it. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can just post in the chat. I'll be happy to help you. Yeah. And coming to the poll, so how familiar are you with Microsoft Graph API? So I'll just pause for 30 seconds here. Let's see how many of you are aware of it already. Okay, let's see. So I see, yeah. So there are few people who are already know, that is around 30% people are already know about this Microsoft Graph API. Remaining 60% of the people still doesn't know this Graph API. So that's pretty much understandable. So I think this might be useful for you guys. Thank you. Let's head on to the intro. So let's see what is an outbound REST message within ServiceNow. So this outbound REST message enables ServiceNow tool to send HTTP requests to the third-party systems, be it Microsoft 365, Graph API, or whatever the tool that has provision to offer REST endpoints. We can interact with them. We can send the request, and get the response from those APIs. So that is what a simple outbound REST message is. It is pretty basic thing which comes with the ServiceNow platform. And the second thing is Microsoft Graph API. So it is a unified endpoint to access all Microsoft 365 services. Be it, as I said earlier, it is be it users, groups, mail, calendar, teams, whatever it is. You can access all these products through the unified Graph API. So with similar request and response structures, which is very much streamlined and easy to understand and easy to use. So that is what Microsoft Graph API is. And so being that said, now we'll see how to start with these integrations first of all. So first of all, to start with any integration with Microsoft 365 products, we need to register our application within Entra ID. That is what we call, earlier it was Azure ID. Now it is Entra ID. So within Entra ID, that is the Microsoft product. So in that we need to register our application. So there we configure our URLs, there is return URLs, all these things, and then we'll get, and we'll also give some permissions to that applications. So that is where we control what kind of data that can be accessed from the Microsoft 365 products by this application. For example, if I want to allow only the user data, then we have that granular level, finely granular level permissions, so that that app will be having only access to that particular users. And if you want to access mails on behalf of a user, we can give delegated access as, and that is delegated access to read email data, the email messages. And if you want to send notifications also uh, to the teams, or to send emails also, then you might need to give a different permission levels. These like roles, it has granularity in the roles, so that we can control how the application behaves. So, and also this application will help the administrators to monitor what's happening, like so what interactions are being done, and how they are being called, and from where it is being called, that all the logs that we can track within the enter application itself, so that the M360, Microsoft Azure admins can monitor the data being that is being sent and like received. So this is what the enter ID application is. So once you register here, you will get the client ID and client secret. That is the one which we can use in service now to register our OAuth record. That is OAuth application to connect to the Microsoft Graph API. So with the client ID and client secret. So next one. So, and for this Graph API, we should be aware of two different types of access that provides. That is, one is delegated access and another one is application access. What is delegated access and another, what is application access? So if I say delegated access, for example, if I want to read emails of X person X, so I can not read that user's emails through application access, because when I say application, it is simply a service account kind of thing, service based kind of thing. So we can access basic data, like we can access user information, like who is the user, and what are different properties of user, like who is his manager, what is his email, that kind of data we can access. But to access the email message that were received by a particular user, we cannot do that using the application access. We should give delegated access. So, and the other difference here is when I give delegated access, so the grant type in auth should be authorization code grant. But whereas when you use application access, so you can do it via client credentials grant. So that means there is no user login required to get the access tokens and all. So, and this is a typical authorization URL which you can use to authorize your application and get the token. Then, and similarly, you can, if you are using the application access, you can directly use the token URL, so that it will automatically dynamically get the token whenever a request is being sent out to the Graph API. Yeah. So this is the difference between the delegated access and application access. So delegated access means our application, whatever that we're designing in service now, can interact with Graph API and on behalf of a different user, an X user. But when I say application access, it is like a service account. So you can access the data which are not personal to anyone, any particular user. Like I said, like his team's messages or the person's team's messages that are very much personal to him, that we cannot access through application access. If you want to send a notification to the teams using the Graph API, you can do that, but that cannot be done as application access type. If you have given application access type roles, of course that is possible, but that is not recommended by Microsoft. That is only used while migrating data from a different chat client to Microsoft Teams. That is not for our service now to integrate with. So that is about the application, different grant types that are offered with Graph APIs. And then, so there is another poll that I'm going to publish. Just I would like to see how much are all, how many of you are already aware of these integrations. So let's see. I'll pause here for another 30 seconds. Yeah, thank you. So I see there are pretty much amount of people, almost more than 80% of the people already know how to use REST messages. That's very good. So we can easily navigate this one, I think. Yeah. So how to consume this Graph API via REST message? So first of all, we need to get the endpoint for the particular Graph API. So the endpoints are always similar, like it's like this one, the HTTPS colon graph.microsoft.com and the version, and then the resource. Resource might be users, or it might be chart, or it might be group, it might be calendar, it might be mail. Different kinds of resources are available out of the box. Sorry, from the Microsoft Graph. And then you can pass some query parameters so that you can filter the data, or what you call, you can extract the specified number of records, like to paginate the data, and all these things you can control using these query parameters. Okay. And even if you, for example, if I want to get the user data from Microsoft Graph API within that tenant, that is nothing but, it's nothing but the Azure AD or Entra AD. So, but you want only specific attributes like first name, last name, email. That also you can specify using these query parameters. That is, I can just, there is a parameter called select. So using that select, you can specify what fields you need. So then you can easily, you can only get that amount of data. So that is the endpoint. So it is as I said earlier, it is unique across the Graph APIs. Okay. And the next one is supported HTML. What methods are supported? Almost all the HTML is supported. You can get, post, put, patch, and delete. So if you want to add a new user into your AD, that also you can do from here. If you want to update your user, one user record in the AD, that also you can do from ServiceNow. If you just want to get the data from uh, Graph API, that is the Azure AD, you can do that. If you want to read the calendars, that also you can do that. If you want to create a new event, you can do that. So that are all possible. And the next one is headers. So basically it expects the authentication and the content type. So authorization, it should be given as the bearer and the access token. So of course, ServiceNow will will do this automatically for us whenever you are rightly configured. Like if you have registered your OAuth application and given it as authentication type for this OAuth REST message, then it will automatically do this part. This we don't have to worry about. And the second one is content type. So the content type is basically application JSON, except you are getting some plain text data. Like for example, if I just want to get the count of users or just the count of messages I have, then that is plain text. Otherwise, most of the times it is application JSON. And sometimes there is another one, consistency level. That is another header that accepts that is being expected by Microsoft Graph API for some of the resources. That is uh, that is another one. And the next one, query parameters. That is what I said earlier. Query parameters can be used to filter your data, to get only specific attributes, or just to get the number of specify how many number of records you need. So that all you can do using this query parameters. So you can use advanced filtering techniques in this query parameter, using this query parameters itself. So by using all these things, you can configure your outbound REST message and get the data. And there are some limitations to this one. So the limitation is whenever you query this Graph API, so by default it will return only 999 records, and that is the maximum level also. So if you want to paginate these things, then you need to follow a different approach that also we'll discuss in the next slide. So you can, according to your application requirement, you can specify this parameter called dollar top, that query parameter, and a number might be 10 or 3 or 4, whatever. So it will return only that many number of records. And the beauty of this one is, along with each API call, it will provide the next URL, that is the next link to access the next records. That is, for example, if you have accessed first 100 records, it will return a property in the JSON that was returned as a response, that is ordered at next link, which will contain a link to access the next 100 records, or next 30 records, or the balance records which are available. And if there are no more records, then it will not return any OData or next link property. So this thing which we can use to automate our pagination while getting the data from uh, Graph API to this particular application, that was ServiceNow application. So this is how we handle the pagination. And finally, how to consume this data. For example, if you are importing bulk data or syncing bulk data into service now, so we can easily use the scripted data sources. So by using scripted data source, we can call this rest message that we have configured earlier and get the data insert the data into import set table. Once it is imported, then we can use our transform maps, so our easy platform feature, to transform these records and or validate the records and insert them or reject them into ServiceNow target tables. So, so this the benefits is we can reuse the scripted data resource, and we can even schedule the imports. And the beauty thing is we don't need an integration hub license for this one. If you don't have the integration hub license, you don't have to worry about integrating with Microsoft products. So, for example, there is another use case scenario. If you want to have a SharePoint access, there is a catalog item which is used for requesting access to a SharePoint site. So that all you can automate without any manual intervention using this Graph API. So whenever the user is on catalog item form, you can dynamically get all the SharePoint sites which are available in that for that organization, and the user can select that particular SharePoint site, and automatically once it is requested, we can just trigger an approval for that particular SharePoint site owner that we can get using the owner list. We can get using this Microsoft Graph API, and once that is done, once the approval is done, we can even call the next Graph API to just add this user, whoever is the requested for user, to that particular authorized the access. I mean, people who have access to that one, be it read only or read write. That also we can specify. So we can entirely what you call automate this entire particular use of this flow. Like this, we can do many other things also. For example, even for cab meetings, we might send invites using our notifications actually. But instead of that, we can use this integration, which will create an event in the target audience table, audience Microsoft Calendar. So that is possible. These are the so. Thank you all. That's it for the day. Any questions? So sorry, I have a demo ready, but unfortunately there is no time. I will post the demo in my LinkedIn, which you can follow me here. So there you can see the demo. Yes, the able to make SharePoint source search service knowledge. So this is possible, but this is out of the box available. We can integrate just the SharePoint data with our knowledge base. I see Ella. And the next question is with Microsoft Graph API that I tried using. Yeah, Sendil. So if there are no if all the permissions, granular level permissions are rightly provided, we won't see this message. But once the consent is provided, admin consent is provided, maybe you need to refetch the token. So that is the most of the time that was the issue. So token will get, but if you modify the permissions, you need to clean the token and get the new token. That way it would be useful. So the Intune level permissions are available. I have the resources. In the resources, I have provided the API. So this you can URL, you can use this URL to find the right Intune level permissions to read the data. That is possible. Recently, I did that one. Yes, Jerry Wong. Yes, we can definitely use our PDS to connect to this MS Graph API. The only thing you need is you just need a tenant in Microsoft 365. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Thank you all. Thanks for your time. I hope it's useful at least for some kind of some level of your knowledge. Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye bye.